Hi, I'm Mark Waid, writer of Superman, Batman, World's Finest, Teen Titans, Kingdom Come, Captain America, Daredevil. I guess I could be here a while. And you're here watching Splash Pages.
We have a superb guest here, and as you can tell, we have everybody here literally quite sitting on their feet. That makes no sense, so I'm just going to continue working with it, and hopefully it will make sense. We have an amazing writer on. He's done so much that I'm sure you've read something in his career. Flash, Kingdom Come, other things, Marvel, DC, Boom Studios, all of that. He's great humored. He's a truly amazing person to meet at a convention, as I've met him twice already, and each time was awesome. Everybody, the one, the only, Mr. Mark Waid.
Hey,
Hey, how's it going, Mark?
Yeah, please hold your applause. So,
Oh, totally. Oh, I have to tell you, your work on World's Finest, holy crap, I am loving it.
Thank you. It's my favorite thing in the world to write. And working with Dan Mora just makes it even better.
Oh, totally. Holy crap. Yeah, it's like I'm so mad at myself for sleeping on this. I just
Same.
When I heard you were doing the Kingdom Come story in it, that's when I started picking it up. I'm through the first 2 trades right now, and I think I have like 10 issues to go to get caught up. Absolutely loving it so far.
Great. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Leo having a little fanboy moment.
I know. We thought it would just be for Lee Bermejo, but no, apparently Mark Waid on the list. So you're welcome, buddy. So doing the research, we tried finding a few things to talk about. I was like, he's been working so much in comics. A few. So I had one question because thank you to Wikipedia. When you first started Adventure Comics, the Legion of Superheroes by Jim Shooter and Mort Weismer, who brought up Mordru, you said that was like the blueprint of everything you write.
I said once in an interview 30 years ago, and for some reason it's not untrue, but it follows me around. I hate the fact the main thing on my entire Wikipedia page, and I would change it if they allowed people change your own Wikipedia page. So if one of you wants to jump in, feel free.
God damn it! I'm sorry.
Get it, Drew.
No. You're not mad at you. I'm just. There is some truth to that, though. I mean, I think that there is a structure that Jim Shooter, as a kid, brought to the Legion of Superheroes in the 1960s that was a beautiful hybrid of what DC was doing at the time and what Marvel was doing at the time. And I just drank that stuff up.
Okay.
How did you first get into comics? Like, you're such a legend now. Like, where did it all begin for you? Were you a reader as a kid?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it really began when I was like 3, and my dad brought home some Batman comics because of the Batman TV show with Adam West.
Very cool.
It just never stopped. I mean, I was a DC boy all throughout the 60s as I was growing up, and then found Marvel Comics in the 70s and had my mind blown by that. And I've never stopped. I've never stopped reading. I've never stopped buying.
Very cool. Well, it's still buying today.
Yeah.
That's great. We talk to so many creators that just get burnt out by the reading. They read their own stuff, but
yes, and those guys are going to be, fossilized dinosaurs in 5 years.
Yeah,
because I'm not saying you need to read every crappy superhero comic out there, but there's a lot of really good stuff going outside DC and Marvel
absolutely
in graphic novel form, and you're just cheating yourself if you're not reading it and looking for new techniques, new ways of telling stories. One of my great joys about being the publisher of Humanoids for a few years was working with graphic novels from overseas that were structurally nothing really like, stylistically nothing like what we do over here, and just picking up a little thing here or there as a storyteller.
Speaking of reading, so Justin's asking, are you reading TMNT, maybe The Last Ronin?
Here's the thing. I'm old. So I after Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sort of date after me. By that time, I was a grown up. So it didn't have, I don't have the same emotional connection to that stuff.
Mhm.
My emotional connection to the characters stops at about 1978. And and I'm not saying that characters created after that aren't awesome. Ms. Marvel is terrific. Firestorm is great, but I think every one of us on this podcast and everyone listening to it has that pocket of time when you're a
Oh
kid
yeah.
where it's just so magical and you're just so into this stuff in the most innocent way. And so, my remit is from the mid 60s to the, late 70s. And I read everything after that. And there's some great comics out there for after that. But I'm just saying, once I became a college student, I didn't really have the same emotional connection to these characters.
Okay.
Understandable.
You just
Fair.
mentioned the Humanoids, and I read the Ignition and the Ignited
Thank
and
you.
Strangelands and Omni.
Thank you.
Yeah, and they were all wonderful. I know you only wrote Ignited, but you were the creative director for the
Yeah.
other two, and you really are good. I read a lot of your other stuff from like Boom, and I read some smaller stuff. By the way, The Unknown. I need more, please. Um,
We'll get back. We'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to that.
Got
okay.
it.
Yay.
Don't manage your expectations, but keep going.
But you have a trend that I saw in some of those, and I think that was part of the company too, where the humans are just the villains and everything. Just humanity as a race, destroying the planet was a huge theme for those.
Yeah.
And but I really like, you came up with some really interesting, like the origami paper girl and stuff. You came up with some real great superpowers in writing those. So was it a whole company type? From what I could gather reading Humanoid stuff, it was almost kind of
was.
political movement, but
Yeah. I mean, it was less so before I came aboard. Those books had already sort of been developed. Ignited was the one that was the least fleshed out. It was just, here's a bunch of characters, do something. And I saw this as my opportunity to lean heavily into the political situation, because it's about kids dealing that the cards I were dealt were a bunch of kids in the school shooting have this transformative moment that they go home from this and they are just, something in them kicks up, some power, some ability. I'm not saying that you have to be at a school shooting to have a superpower at all.
Right.
You get what I'm saying. This is like their body reacting to this, and so the beauty of writing those characters is that they didn't all have to be politically good guys necessarily, or politically bad guys. I mean, I feel very strong feelings about school shootings. I have very, very strong feelings about gun control in this country and the lack of it. And being able to write a bunch of teenagers who were in that pocket of time as high school students, being able to use abilities to really strike back at the atmosphere, the society that facilitates that kind of nonsense. But the fun thing about that, fun is a relative term, but the thing about writing that though was these kids weren't always right. Some of them spoke with my voice sometimes, but sometimes they didn't, because people are complicated, and teenagers are especially complicated. So they were anti-heroes to some degree.
Right.
yeah, and you just did an amazing job with that, because
Thank you.
played out how when people are like, these are, and the story, the letters and stuff, the introductions to other people who'd been involved,
That
in
was
those.
something I pushed hard for. I realized that we should be doing, and we did. We incorporated text pieces in every issue that were pieces written from people who had gone through school shootings.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
and
pretty
and
deep.
it showed the people who were like, oh, this was fake. This was, they had actors in because
Ah.
somebody goes missing. Some of them do, and the
Yeah.
radio people, and then other, we're going to protect you. We're showing
Wasn't
up
it
with
great
as
how
many
much
guns
they
as
made
we
him
can,
pay?
you know, it was,
Yeah.
it was just so beautiful to see you pull
Thank you.
in because it's real. It's happening, right? That is what's happening.
Right, and you're not going to
And
see that in a Marvel or DC comic because they're corporate owned and they have to protect those characters and they have to, be careful not to rile up a big part of their audience base and make them angry. I get it. So the beauty of being able to work with Ignited and being able to work with Humanoids was to be able to go off book a little bit and not have to tamp down my own political activist soul.
I like that. I just wanted to thank you for writing those because those
No,
were
well, thank you
just
for. I'm
great pieces.
glad that meant something to you. Thank you.
What's the creative process like when you're doing like do you research a lot of the school shootings and stuff, and how's that on your psyche? Like
it's,
uh,
it's not great. Again, that book ended a couple 3 years ago now, right? So we did like 10
Yeah.
issues, I think, altogether. But yeah, there was a lot of talking to people who'd been through school shootings. There was a lot of reading up on school shootings. I didn't take it lightly. I mean, I realized that this would be a really easy subject to screw up and be callous about. So I did my homework.
Right.
Oh yeah, you did.
On another note, something else I realized is that at one point you were an editor. So and you started that when DC and whatnot, and you worked. You were one of the people who was kind of helped usher in Elseworlds, and I guess the thing is that you have that, and then you did your phenomenal 8-year run, which I finally have read all of, and that was totally awesome. I've never really been too big of a Flash fan. Reading all that run, I was like, I get it.
Thank you.
And it's just phenomenal. And then what is it like when looking back on it, these things that are considered iconic to a character or just these legendary moments in comics, and you're like, I was just doing the story. That sounded like a good idea. Like, what is that like looking back on it? Like
that really is it. I mean, it's, one of the biggest frying pan in the face moments I ever had was when we were working on Kingdom Come, and we knew it would be something a little special, but didn't really. And I had not finished writing the 4th issue until the first issue came out. And oh my God, at the reaction, and it paralyzed me. I mean, it actually gave me severe writer's block for like 3 weeks, staring at the script going, I have flop sweat. Oh my God, they're expecting so much out of this. And that was one of the few times when I was in the middle of something that I felt like had fire. But as a general rule, you just put your head down and you tell the best stories you can, and you look back and you realize, your batting average is pretty good.
Yeah. And Kingdom Come for me, Kingdom Come is one of the few comics I ever read that the ending actually made me cry. I was like, holy cow, this is just. And it's funny because I had the 4 issues and I brought it. I remember I had met you at Boston Comic-Con like years ago. I think it was like 2014 or something. And I think you said you had made a joke that every year you think you've signed every official copy.
And somebody finds one.
Somebody finds one, or they reprint it. You're like, well, okay. I mean, but it was all good humor. And I think if I've ever said to anybody, I was like, these are the top 5. You read these, you will understand what comics can do. And Kingdom Come is always there. And so just that was mine. Leo, what do you have?
So I don't want to spoil it because I haven't gotten it to that point yet, but I know you just brought in Kingdom Come into the world's finest.
Yeah.
And I know with Flashpoint, was brought back into canon throughout the Tom King or Tinian run?
I think Tinian.
One
One of those. Yeah,
I think it was Tom King. It was between the two of them. It started. Yeah. Well, anyway, so Flashpoint was brought in, and I think a couple other Elseworlds, like they're trying, like Killing Joke with 3 Jokers and everything, trying to bring that into the mainstream. What was your thought process? Bringing Kingdom Come, into, because World's Finest is, from what I understand, it is canon, correct? It's not.
It's absolutely. It is. All of it is. This happened a few years ago.
Mhm.
It's set in the not too distant past, so that we can, and this was the request of editorial, so we can tell stories about the classic versions of those characters without having to worry about modern continuity, in the sense that, I mean, when I took the book on, Superman was in space for a year, and Bruce had no money, and so that wouldn't have been a very fun Superman and Batman book to write. So yeah, it's all set in the past. I didn't barrel into this starting the series thinking, oh, I want to go back to the Kingdom Come world, but I knew I wanted to tell the story of Boy Thunder, which was the second arc we had, which is the one about Superman having a sidekick for the first time. And that was actually a bullet I had in the chamber for 25 years, because it was at one point going to be our sequel to Kingdom Come.
Right.
It was something that DC had asked Alex and I to see if we could create something that was an ongoing series. Alex would be able to paint it, but we would be able to work back and forth. And that was the idea that rose, and it just didn't happen for a million different reasons. But I've been wanting to tell that story. So obviously, when we tell that story and we tie it to Kingdom Come in that way, then we need to go back to that Kingdom Come world at some point. The trick was to not write it as a sequel to Kingdom Come, because that is a recipe for disaster. That is a guaranteed disappointment.
Never seems to go well. I'm sure he'll be right back.
Yep. There we go.
And we'll take a commercial break. Well, and yeah, wonderful. And we're back with Mark.
Okay.
So, oh man, I just got all goofed up in my head because of that. What would you consider one of your favorite storylines that you've done that you would say, hey, if you really want to know my writing, you should check this out?
Superman Birthright, like full stop. That's
so good.
Maybe my favorite thing I ever wrote, because it's my love letter to Superman. It's like, here's the keys to the car, retell the origin from a 21st century standpoint, and find some way to deal with some of the things that we take for granted with Superman. Just that show us why we shouldn't take these things for granted.
And on top of it, you had Lionel Yu as the artist. I mean, the 12 issues of just super. Like, we're all Lionel Yu fans here. Anytime he puts out a cover for Marvel, we're like, God, that's great.
First time I ever saw his work, I was standing in the Marvel offices, and somebody had original art pages from whatever his first gig was, and I looked at it and I called him and I said, we're going to work together at some point. And when Superman Birthright came about and they were casting for artists, there were some very good names put on the table, but all of them had drawn Superman somewhere at one point or another. And I wanted somebody whose Superman was not familiar to you.
Right. Yeah. And I will say this, I'm a so Superman fan, but I, for some reason, love collecting his origin stories, and we've read a few of them. And I had Birthright, and Birthright's ending. Yes. Yeah, but Birthright's ending. I mean, I have John Byrne's Man of Steel. I have your Birthright. I have Superman for All Seasons, which I always consider as an origin by Jeff Loeb and the late great Tim Sale. But your ending for Birthright, I mean, wow.
Thanks.
What a super gut punch. I was like, God, that's great.
That's one of those rare times when I had the ending first and went backward to get there.
Nice.
How's that to work? That's got to be more like comforting to yourself. Be like, I already know where I'm going with this.
It is. I mean, it happens rarely, but a lot of times with my creative process, and I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but my creative process is just sitting until an idea for an image pops into my head. What is an interesting thing that we've never seen before? How would we not, what would be a good moment of emotion here? I'm not even thinking about story at that point, only in the most general terms. And then as I start to come up with another piece and another piece, I start to see how they, like a jigsaw puzzle, how they all start to come together. For me, writing a story is like doing a jigsaw puzzle, turning one piece over at a time.
That makes sense. It's revealed. That's kind of cool. It's almost being revealed to you as you tell this story.
It's the fun part to me. I mean, I have done gigs and stories where I have outlined very heavily and know the story beats going in, and I get bored. when I actually write the thing. The fun part for me is making it up as I go.
Right. Mm.
When it comes to puzzles, I'm going to drag you back to Boom, if that's
Yeah.
okay. Because I said I read a bunch for you. I did The Traveler. That was mind-bogglingly
Thank you.
trying to wrap my head around that. But gorgeous work, guys. If you haven't read it, read it. As well as Potter's Field. And
Thank
as I mentioned earlier, I want to bring you back to The Unknown because you said
Yeah.
that you had something else to mention about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, it's manage your expectations. You'll probably never see any more of it because Mink Oostevere, the artist who I work with on it, the co-creator, not too long after we finished the second series, died in a freak motorcycle accident. A very young man. And it doesn't feel right. I mean, I may change my mind somewhere down the road, but it's never felt right to go back there without
gotcha.
me. So
Wow.
Yeah.
that may be
Okay.
all you ever get.
I managed my expectations and still I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
It
Darn.
is that I understand that entirely. I just want you to know that that is one of, like, not just in comics, that is one of the most amazing
Thank you.
supernatural mystery
Thank
setups
you.
and concepts that I've ever read. And
It's
it's not just the idea, you write it so well.
Thank you. It's rare that I get the chance to demonstrate to people, look, I can write more than superheroes. I can write Archie comics and make you laugh. I can write Potter's Field, which is a procedural. I can write,
Yeah.
The Unknown, which is like you said, a supernatural mystery story, and it's fun.
And bring also back to Boom Studios, one of my favorites that you did there was Incorruptible.
Yeah.
The spin-off of your other series, Irredeemable, which was essentially another kind of evil Superman-ish. But I absolutely loved Max Damage doing the thing, and just the whole series. I mean, I own all of it, and you've graciously have signed all of it, so thank you. It's just what a great series, and I every time I read it, I just keep thinking, God, if I ever see this at a con, I would just say, I know who you are, and I hope Mark Waid does, because I know it's going to make his day. Because
That
just, oh, so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, for those who are listening and don't know, my Keystone series at Boom was Irredeemable, which again, What If Superman Broke Bad, but much deeper than that. I would like to think it's easy to tell that story. It's
Yeah.
much more interesting to tell the story of, okay, why would this happen to somebody, and what would happen to somebody with these powers, really?
Mhm.
And Incorruptible was the flip side. Incorruptible was, okay, well, one of the world's great villains realizes that the world's being torn up by the Plutonian, and he's gone berserk, and I guess I gotta be the hero here.
Yep. He tries.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
He tries very well.
He tries.
He does. No, but it's just, oh man, what a series. But
How do you stay so creatively motivated over the years? Like, you've been in comics now for what?
40 years.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say over 35. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Where does it all come from?
A lot of it is just continuing to tap my love of these characters, and the fact that I feel like with most of the DC characters in particular, I feel like I've got some angle on them that maybe you've never thought about before, or
Mhm.
some facet of their personality, or something about how their powers work, or something that I want to show you. It is not always easy to stay motivated. And again, I don't mean to suddenly take a left turn and we go down with this, but
Mhm.
we'll remember, we'll pick up after this, so it's not a complete down.
Absolutely.
But
Oh, they're good.
one of the real challenges in the last 6-7 years has been realizing that you're writing about superheroes whose values and morals are not shared by as many people as you thought they were. And that has been a real impediment sometimes to me getting out of bed, creatively speaking. It's hard because how can you read these comics? As a kid, and not understand the message, and how can you not claim to love these characters as an adult and yet completely miss the mark when it comes to what they stand for and what they champion? And
100%.
and it gets under my skin sometimes, and it does sometimes make it a little difficult. I was talking about this last night to a friend. I said that to some degree, the appeal of the job has always been, I love living in the real world, but it's fun to go live in Metropolis for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And I have concluded that maybe one of the reasons I'm doing so much work right now is because I kind of need to live in Metropolis a little bit more than here for the time being until things settle down. I don't know. And with that,
it's a tough life out there right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that, somebody asked a question that is happier than that.
Well, so this is a little similar though. So Justin's asking, what do most people miss about Superman as a character?
First off, that kindness is not synonymous with weakness, which makes me berserk. It's not just, I don't care how hard he can punch stuff. That's not what we're reading Superman stories to find out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what people miss about Superman is that you really just have to suspend your disbelief, maybe more than you do with some more popular characters, maybe more than you have to do with Batman, or maybe you have to do with more than you would have to do with the Marvel characters. But with Superman, the buy-in is that he does the impossible. The buy-in is that he doesn't screw up. No, the buy-in is that while he may not be perfect, he will always find a way to make things right. And it's just part of the magic of the character. And you can't, the moment you start making him more real, quote unquote, the moment you Zack Snyder him up, then you've lost that character. You've lost the essence of that character. It's just, I don't need Superman. I don't need to know what Superman would be like if he was more like us. Superman's purpose exists so that we can be more like Superman.
Oh, well said.
Thank you.
And, Leo, I think I might need some tissues. Do you have a box? that was beautiful. Like,
thank you.
My Gotham heart just iced over just a little bit, just a little frosty here. It's actually funny because it's Leo. Funny that you brought that up, because I remember reading an article that Jason Aaron, who's working on Action Comics briefly for Bizarro, said that he was like, "No, I'm doing Superman. I got to talk to Mark Waid. I got to pick his brain about what I'm doing, because if anyone knows, it's that guy." And I was like, "Good call, good call."
That was very kind of Jason to say that.
How much fun is it to do
honestly, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, Kari, you were saying something? No, I guess not.
Okay. Yeah, go for it, Mark.
I was going to say that Jason's being too kind. I mean, we do talk about Superman a lot, but he didn't need my help. Really, it was just fun to hear what he wants to do, and if he wants my blessing, he's got my blessing. I mean, he doesn't need it, but I love what he's doing in Action Comics. We have a kinship, not just because we're writers and not just because we're both from Alabama, but more specifically, he's from Jasper, Alabama, which is a little tiny town on about midway between Birmingham and Tupelo, Mississippi. And we used to drive, I think, literally by his house all the time when I was a teenager, and he was, probably a 5-year-old boy playing in the front yard. I probably saw Jason more than once as we were going through Jasper. The end. That's the story.
Great story.
Just real quick to keep it on Superman.
Yeah.
Really? No way.
Yeah.
Who drew the picture you have behind you, and what is your favorite storyline or art? One of your favorite arcs of Superman?
Okay, so 2-part question. Okay, so this was a painting made for DC Comics by a pulp magazine painter called H.J. Ward, named H.J. Ward. He was quite famous back in the day, quite good. And he did this painting, well, literally not this painting, but he did, you know what I mean. It was tweaked a little bit by an artist named Stan Kay to look a little bit more like Superman in the face. And then it hung in the DC offices for, 20 years or whatever. And then one day it just went missing. And it stayed missing for something like 30 years. And then one day, someone in the library at Ohio in Cleveland stumbled across it in the back room somewhere. No one knows how it got there. No one knows why, but they were able to unearth the thing and find it again. They made some prints of it in the 1970s, which is what you're looking at over my shoulder.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Story.
So that's that. My favorite Superman storyline. It goes back and forth. So any day you ask me this, you might get a different answer. But today, I would say that it's, funnily enough, it's not in comics. It is actually a couple of prose novels that were written by a man named Elliot S. Magan, who wrote Superman in the 70s. And Elliot also wrote 2 prose novels about Superman. One's called Last Son of Krypton, and the second one, which is even better, is Miracle Monday. And those 2 books, I think, define Superman for me better than anything else I've ever read. I just love those stories, and I highly recommend, they're still in print. I highly recommend you seek them out if you're at all into Superman.
Leo, Last Son of Krypton's the one about the destruction of Krypton, right?
And then then Miracle Monday is basically Superman versus Satan, basically.
Sweet.
Oh wow,
Very cool. I'll check them out. Thank you.
So I want to stay on the whole what the message you're trying to now put out in comics, like not like a secret message or anything like that, but like the kind of like stories that you want people to take away after and be like, the good guys won. This is what we were going for here. And what are you doing now?
I think that if there's a commonality to my work, I think that the 2 things you'll find is that they're very emotion heavy, and they're all about how people feel, and they're all about when I first started writing comics, I thought that a really clever clockwork plot, like was, perfectly refined, was the way to go. And I was an idiot. That's just like doing a Sudoku puzzle. I mean, you're very clever, but nobody comes to read stuff for clever plots. That's not the part they remember. What they remember are the emotional parts. And so that's a big part of, I think, my work. The other part is, and I think this is a message of sorts, is that I am a big fan of writing stories where you win because you're smarter and more clever, and not because you hit harder.
I like that.
Nice. So
I was just reading. Oh.
No, Kari, you go.
Go for it, Kari.
Go for it, Kari.
Oh, another thing I was reading was Brave and the Bold. And so when you're talking about with the plots and stuff, all the stuff with the Book of Destiny, and then you just have to have so much fun writing that, because you're just like, who am I going to pick out of the thing today to pair up with, random roll the dice.
Right.
You made some great partnerships.
Right. Which obscure DC character do I love that I can spend time showing you why I love them in hopes that you will love them too? Yes, that's what Brave and Bold was all about. And that's a large part of what The World's Finest book is about too. We pull in guest stars right and left because, I think, Metamorpho is a cool character. Let me show you why I think he's a cool character.
What was your favorite combination to write in those? Like just grabbing out of the mix, and then how it turned out when you finished it?
That's a really good question. Flash and the Doom Patrol, I think, because they just don't belong together in the least. But it was a good story. And I think, that was from teaming up Wonder Woman and Power Girl was also a lot of fun, because the whole point of that was to show you why they are different.
I
gotta say,
mentioned Supergirl and Lobo.
Yeah,
he loved that one.
You mentioned Metamorpho. I've heard you are quite a fan of Metamorpho.
Yeah, you would think. Yeah, the way I've gone on about Metamorpho in the last year, you would think that he's my favorite DC character of all time. So You were going to say, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Well, I was going to say, what about Metamorpho do you like? And what are your thoughts on Anthony Kerrigan being cast to play him?
What picture is just chef's kiss casting on that? I mean, my God.
Look at that. You got Mark Waid's blessing, people.
There you go. Boom, done.
God. It's one of the things I like about Metamorpho is that you have to be clever, because his power is not he can turn into anything. He can transform into any element. The power of Metamorpho is that what happened to him was that radiation scrambled him and scrambled his genetic structure so that he's still got all the stuff that we have in us chemically, organically in our bodies, but it's all over the place. And so he can only become things that are in the human body, which I've done my science research. There's like 20 elements that are heavily found in the human body. There's a few other trace elements, but he can't turn into uranium. He can't turn into plutonium, not only because that's not in the human body, but also because that's really stupid, because if he could turn into plutonium, he could win every single fight.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's go around and be like, I'll give you cancer.
Right. So in other words, so what I like about writing Metamorpho is that it forces me to be clever and do my chemical research, do my chemistry homework.
That's awesome.
What's one of the more difficult characters you've written?
There are a couple that I can't get a handle on, and that's not a fault of the character. It's that I don't respond to them in any way. Thor is one. Thor's probably the best example. I think Thor's a great character, but I was a science kid. I was a big science whiz, and I was a physics minor in college, and I was never one for ancient mythology. I think it's awesome, but it's not for me. And so characters like Wonder Woman, characters like Thor, characters like that rely very heavily on ancient mythology just don't speak to me. And I can't find my way into Thor. I bet if I thought hard enough, I might be able to. Wonder Woman's equally difficult. I mean, we managed to do okay with her in Kingdom Come, but I don't know that if you handed me the Wonder Woman series to write that I would do a good job.
Some of us would probably beg to differ, but
well, one thing that I especially want to bring up is that I in reading a lot of your work over time, and primarily and I can best example is Daredevil, is that your sense of humor that the characters has been always great. Like I remember, like what was it? I think it was during one of your Spider-Man arcs. You had a story where Peter was running out of clothes and he had to wear this horrible sweater while he was running to the street. And there's anybody who saw him, like one person's like, "Oh, my eyes, why?" Like what is it? And even like Daredevil, which we read a nice chunk of before he came on. Like I have, again, I've only read some Daredevil, and I've always credited yours as being really one of my favorites. The humor, the humor primarily, the action, your artistic creators, all phenomenal. But there was just always this joke. Like I was just talking to Kari before the show that I love. What was it? The lawyer and him have that whole back and forth where she's like, "You're Daredevil." He's like, "I'm not Daredevil."
No, I'm not.
Just all these things.
No.
I think it was that she had "Your Daredevil" written on her bra, and he's like, "Nope, can't say anything," and just snapped the pencil. I was like, "This is great."
It's humor comes from character. I mean, it's harder to write humor in comics than you think, but it's really important. I'll tell you what. It's harder to write to write well, because if you're doing it badly, it's just banter back and forth between characters, and it's clever, quippy, snappy dialogue between a bunch of characters, but it doesn't necessarily fit who they are. If you really stop to think about it for a second, these characters, this is how they sound. When you're doing humor and it's coming from the characters, it still has to be grounded in how they are, what their personalities are, what does it say about them? They're funny. The Daredevil Matt Murdock can be funny, but he wouldn't, but not in a fart joke level. He's. And it wouldn't, Captain America is not one to, be witty bantering back and forth in the middle of a fight. It's just not him. So it's harder than you think, but it's important because, at least it's important to me, because I feel like when I write these characters, when I write these books, what I like to do, and I pulled this probably from Joss Whedon as much as anybody else, as much as anything else. Serious, funny. Oh, funny thing. Okay, cool. I'm relaxing now. Oh, you're funny. I'm relaxed. Oh God, suddenly you turn the page and some things just suddenly change. And I love keeping you off balance that way as a reader. I think it's important to do that.
Kari, you should tell him the thing you loved about him and Daredevil and Spider-Man.
Yeah, I was just gonna do that. I loved how they in the Daredevil Spidey combo, they each just hate working with each other because he rushes in, but the best part about it is so many people bitch about Spidey's he just won't shut up and it just drives them crazy. For Daredevil, it literally messes up his senses of being able to track everything. So it's like even more than just shut up, just shut up.
That's and again, that's humor coming from the character. That joke doesn't make any sense unless you realize that Daredevil depends so heavily on his sense of hearing.
Yeah. It was just that was just a great setup.
Thank you.
You did do quips well there, so
thank you.
And also one more is that what a wonderful saga reference you slipped in there in your Daredevil run. That Lion Cat says you're lying. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Daredevil is a saga fan. That's amazing.
Yeah, we'll read saga, you bet. So
of course,
as all good people should.
Absolutely. So just wanted to say that your Daredevil from the end of the first arc, the end of the first series, which is issue 36, and then with you and Chris Samney did where it's Matt Murdock, it's San Francisco, like just great. And then the second you guys ended, I tried and I was like, no, I can't. I was like, I don't mind Dark Daredevil, but after I've had fun swashbuckling Daredevil, I was like, I can't go. I'm done. I'm move on.
I love it how Daredevil compared Captain America's shield to a Stradivarius. I thought,
that was
clever.
Like Babe Ruth's bat. I mean, it really is so iconic.
Yeah. Just on the opposite side of the humor, though, you also captured like that bus scene with the blind kids, and after the crash, like the kids asking what happened to the bus driver. You said so much and so little there. It was definitely very touching.
Thank you. I that was the one that won the Eisner Award. God bless him. So I'm in large part because Paulo Rivera drew it. In large part because Paulo drew it. But no one would remember that comic if it were drawn by some generic hack. So, but again, I want to give you a wide as possible range of emotions when you read my work than just quippy banter or just dark. I think it's important to switch it up.
Totally.
Yeah. Now you mentioned your sorry, go Kari.
No. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I know we are running on time, so we'll start wrapping things up. But you mentioned you are still reading. What's something you've read recently that you'd recommend?
I like what Chip Zdarsky's doing in Batman.
Nice.
Leo.
I love Jason Aaron's work on Action Comics Superman. I really like what Philip Kennedy Johnson does. It's hard for me to say specific books. It's more because I'm more likely to tell you writers that I follow. Right. And of course, anything Grant Morrison writes, I'm all over. But a lot of good people out there doing comics right now, and I'm enjoying the DC line more than I have in an awful long time.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, totally agree. Like Zdarsky's Batman, except for that one where like the whole Bat family was against him, and Catwoman was had the training class.
Yeah.
That threw me a little bit, but other than that, everything's been awesome.
It's a comic book, Leo.
I know it's
deep breaths.
Don't take it so seriously.
Yeah. But all those people, Tom Taylor also,
is
Tom Taylor's work is great. There's just and that's just the DC pond. I mean, in terms of, you know, alternate stuff, you know, Firepower by Somni and Kirkman was great. Stuff I would look forward to every month. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I try to sample as much as I possibly can, because you never know when you're going to see something that you go, oh, that's a trick I should put in my back pocket.
Yeah. So one thing is, I know you're going to be at this year. You're going to be at Terrificon.
Yep.
We're also going to be there. So, you know, shameless plug, everyone.
Yes.
You know, cons and whatnot. So sometimes I know that some creators have like a love-hate relationship going to conventions and said such. I understand for some it's the crowd, and some it's just panels and us asking you random things that you did 40 years ago. You're like, yes, sure, yeah, I did that. Yeah. What's that like for you? I mean, again, you started as a fan, and now, you know, you have a table. People will bring books and say how much they love your work, or I don't know. I hope no one's ever told you to go to hell, but I mean, you know, sorry for them. You know,
only once, and the rest of the crowd took care of them before I could say anything. So
there you go. Yeah, what's con experience like for you? I mean, you know,
the negatives are very small. The negatives are you have to be on the moment you step out of your hotel room. And be happy and shiny and bright no matter what's going on in your life. And that energy that it takes to be that way all day at a convention. You know, when I was younger, I could go drinking afterwards, and now I'm at the point where I just when that convention floor clears, I go back to my room and I just face plant, because it's just so much energy you put into, hey, how you doing? You enjoying the show? Great. Tell me more about you. Right. But that's a minor thing. I mean, the fun part is having people come up, talk about how your work meant something to them, or if they observe something in your work that you hadn't observed, or, you know, have some insight into the way you write that you hadn't really thought about. Those are always fun. Or cosplayers who are dressed like your characters are great. It's fun. I like meeting the fans. I don't like doing it for 8 hours at a time. I got to get up and buy some comics at some point, but you know, I do like that.
Do you need us to bring you by a coffee or anything halfway through the day? Get you through.
Most people know to bring me a Diet Coke at some point, or else I'm going to go homicidal. Yes.
Got it. Diet Coke for Mark Waid, everybody. Remember.
It is Terrificon. We could also do a Pepe slice. So. Oh,
we could bring him pizza and a Diet Coke. Be like, Daredevil sent his regards.
This pizza's impossible to eat when you're behind the table, you know, signing stuff, because it's all slimy and.
Oh yeah, you don't want to get anybody's books all flat.
Yeah,
Leo, we don't just stick to the Diet Coke. This news, you know, we'll give him a straw too, so it doesn't we're knocking it over.
No one wants to see me eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich while I'm signing their Avengers comics. No.
You never know.
You never know. They have CGC standing beside them. Look, he did it.
I've been lucky enough to autograph a baby once. That was fun.
Really?
Yeah. I just signed my baby. Okay, great.
They went and got it tattooed afterwards. Baby's license.
Well, no. Then there were also two other people in my vast career that have had me autograph their arm or whatever, and they've turned that into a tattoo. So there are at least two people out there with my signature as one of their tattoos, which is a little weird, but you know, to each their own. That's fine.
Yeah.
I just wonder what they did with the baby afterwards.
You know,
dip it in plastic.
They seem like they were kind people. They seemed like they were, you know, they didn't seem like I should call child services.
Yeah. Just like I was like, you get the kid Ricky Bobby? I was like, wow. All right. Well, I don't know, Leo. Do you have any lingering questions?
I do, but I want to be respectful of the time.
I can give you a few more minutes.
Leo, go.
Last question is: I've read that you introduced Speed Force into the Flash. How did that come about?
I was working with my editor Brian Augustin, who was also my best friend. R.I.P. I'm going to see Brian. Pour one out for Brian. And we talked about the Flash constantly when I was working on that book. It was just a constant, you know, we'd call each other up, talk every day about the stories, the characters and stuff. And one day I got it in my head. I was just kind of curious. And this gets back to what I said about writing the characters from inside and really understanding the characters is I like to really think about what the world looks like to them, or how, if you have these abilities and these powers, how does that affect your everyday life? What kind of stuff do you see? What kind of stuff, how is it different than a normal human being? And I somehow got it in my head, I wonder what Wally sees when he passes the speed of light. What registers on his eyes once you pass the speed of light? And that led into breaking the light barrier, and that led into something being on the other side of that. And before we knew it, we had, in 10 minutes, we come up with something called the Speed Force, which at the time was a very poorly named thing because everybody just thought it was a knockoff of the Force. But it is a name that actually is interestingly aged quite well, apparently.
Oh, totally.
No, it really has.
So actually, I had one other small question. So you've written so many characters. Because a lot of your stories have been adapted, and other people have brought your stories to life. Tower of Babel being an example that just sprung in my mind. But characters like Impulse that you helped co-create with like Humberto Ramos and whatnot. When you hear other people do the characters of the voice, do they sound like what the character sounds like in your head? So
I've never, some people come very close. I've never seen anybody get Bart Allen completely right, but very close. There are other times when you just, you resign yourself to the fact that you've lost that character, and that character's not going to sound like it. But you're playing in a sandbox. You're playing in a toy box where everybody gets to share. So you just have to do your best work and do your best work on the characters that you have, and then have to somehow let that go when you're done. I find it really irritating and disrespectful when writers go on at great angry length about the fact that something they wrote 20 years ago doesn't sound like that character anymore, and doesn't, that my character would never do that, and so forth and so on. Well, probably so, but you got to let it go.
Yeah.
You just got to let it go. That's part of being in this job. I'm sure that when I took over Flash, or when I took over Captain America, or when I took over whatever I've taken over, I'm sure there are things about those books that I didn't do, like the previous writer, that probably rankled some people. It's just the way it works. You're working in a shared toy box.
That was so hard. That's actually something that my mother was asking me about, because I was talking about this podcast that we were doing, and how many different things that you'd written, and she was just like, how do you have somebody that writes, once somebody makes a character, don't they just own them? And I'm like, no, that's not how this works. You have writers that I'm like, sometimes there's multiple versions of the same character being written at the same time. And it confused her so much. And I was just like, trying to explain. She gets some stuff, but
that's the work for hire of it all. But again, you just have to put your head down and just keep working, and don't bitch and moan about what the past has, just look forward. It's when you're writing a series, when you stop writing a series, it's like seeing an old girlfriend when you get the next issue. It's like, this is weird. It's hard for me to read anything right after I've written it, right? Because again, it feels like you're seeing an old girlfriend, and it's strange.
Fair enough.
All right. What was the question about? Do we need a Mark Waid Captain Carrot?
Oh, yeah.
Let's roll back 50 minutes to my statement about how my cutoff point is 1978. So, Captain Carrot, cool character, no emotional investment whatsoever.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Sorry, Justin.
Sorry, maybe next time, buddy. All right, guys, I think I'm good. I think Leo.
I think we're good. We'll wrap things up for you. And just want to remind everybody, plenty of show left, so definitely stay tuned. And Mark, first, I want to thank you again for World's Finest. Everything you've written, previous is amazing, but World's Finest, I'm a huge Batman fan, and I'm loving what Chip's doing, but Batman's become too complicated. Bringing everything back, I'm loving it. Absolutely. I just had to thank you again. But with that being said, where do you like people interacting with you on social media?
Because I'm old, there's a Facebook page, but that I only use really just to look at and see who died. It's like an obituary page at this point. I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky, where
nice.
you can find me, and Instagram, where some idiot took the name Mark Waid, so I'm stuck with Waid Mark. But you can find me there. I'm not as I don't spend as much time with social media and on social media as I would like, but you can find me on occasion.
Okay.
Well, I'm on Blue Sky myself, and it just opened up to the public. So, definitely everybody, go check that out, follow you. And
not so fast, Nazis, but everybody else.
Hey.
And we'll definitely make sure we stop by to see you at Terrificon. We're going to have our booth right outside the panel room. So,
okay.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll let you go, Mark. Thank you again for this evening and your time. And it was an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Oh, wrong button. There we go.
Wrong button.
Wrong button. I hit the wrong button.
Oh, man. I'm
shaking. Should we talk about the Super Bowl?
I need to say that I think that is the most fanboy I've ever seen Leo.
Leo.
I need to credit that. Now this means that we have to complete the trifecta. So, Kari, I'm going to try for Neil Gaiman next time, because then you will lose.
Oh my God.
I'm going to try for that. And this Jar, we might have David Thorne Wenzel on the show at some point. So I know you'll go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs on that again.
It would be nice, but I've met him like 5 times now.
Yeah.
Give me Tom King in here, and we'll
listen. I would gladly have that.
The whole go crazy.
I mean, you all saw how excited I was when we had Tony Harris on. I was like,
oh yeah,
oh boy. I was like, oh boy, this is.